I think I've said sufficient. There's a lot more that could be said on the nature of what is capitalism. But the question is, what's the alternative? The capitalist system is in crisis. I mean, one has to be blind. You don't have to be a genius. You don't have to be a Marxist even to understand this. You're just going to put on your television set to see that the system is in a total crisis on a global scale. They talk about globalization. Well, there's a global crisis of capitalism now. And there is, of course, a growing revolt against capitalism. There's a growing revolt, even in the United States, there's a growing revolt against capitalism, not just among the youth. Many people are beginning to think, well, this isn't the kind of system, perhaps they're not very clear in their minds. And they're not very clear in their minds about the alternative, but at least they understand, well, we can't go on like this is impossible to live in this kind of society. And that's the beginning. But what's required is an organization, a party, if you like. A revolutionary party. Now, I said earlier that the working class is an enormous power. That's true, yes, but it's only a potential power. Let me give you an analogy from nature. Steam is a colossal power. Steam is the basis of the Industrial Revolution. Steam doesn't just enable you to make a cup of tea. Steam drives trains. Steam drives, or used to drive trains when I was small. It drives factories. It drives it powers society. Steam is an enormous power. Yes, but steam is only a power, only a real power, when it is harnessed by machinery, when it's harnessed by a piston box, I think it's called. Okay? Without that piston box that concentrates the steam will just dissipate harmlessly and uselessly in the air. It will mean nothing. And it's the same with our class, same with the working class. The working class, Marx said, the working class without organization is only raw material for exploitation. That's all it is, without organization. It must get organized. The first form of organization is the trade unions. But the worker in the factory combines, and the strength is unity. An individual worker is powerless. But once you get together and you stand and say, look, we're on strike, we're not going to obey you anymore. We demand higher wages. That's the beginning, that's the beginnings of organization. But trade union organization is not sufficient. It isn't just a question of fighting against the individual boss for a wage increase. We're fighting for a change in society, for a change in government, for a change in the state. This means a party. The working class has produced parties. And most of these parties have moved towards socialism in one way or another. Now, what is socialism? Well, socialism, to put it in a few words, is a classless society. We stand for the abolition, not just improving the living standards of the workers, not just reforming society or tinkering with society. We stand for a root and branch change, a fundamental change in society. By the way, that's a revolution. A revolution is a fundamental change in society. And starting with the 19th century, in most countries, in Europe, for example, the workers first formed socialist parties. All the socialist parties stood for socialism, naturally, for a change in society, for the class struggle. Most of the socialist parties in Europe were Marxist, as a matter of fact, to begin with, accepted the ideas of Marx and Engels. But just to simply, for lack of time, let me pose the question, what is socialism? What do we stand for? Well, first of all, we stand for the conquest of political power by the working class. That's the first step. The working class must take power into its own hands. This means a fight against the existing powers, against the landlords, the capitalists, the bankers, and so on. We would pose it in these terms. In a country like Britain, where people are used to elections and so on, we would say, well, okay, let's raise the question of elections. We are not against Parliament. We're not against standing for elections. We're in favour of standing for elections. That's okay. As long as you understand the limitations of parliamentarism. But in any case, we must try to get a majority. We are Democrats. They try to say, oh, you're not Democrats, you're not in favour of democracy. We are Democrats. We stand for the rule of the majority. The working class is the majority. And therefore we have to win over the working class to the idea that it's necessary to change society. Under certain conditions it might be possible even to do this through Parliament. It's not ruled out. It depends. It depends on circumstances. In Venezuela, for example, they could do it. Chavez could have done it quite easily. Should have done it, as a matter of fact. And what we would suggest would be, for example, for a Labour government or a Socialist government to pass an enabling act in Parliament to nationalise, to expropriate, to take over, not everything. That's another argument. Oh no, you want to take over, you want to abolish private property, you're going to take my television away, you're going to take my car away. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. We are not interested in taking the small things. All we're into, we're more moderate, if you like, we're very moderate people. All we want is to nationalise the land, the banks, and the big monopolies. Full stop. We're not interested in the small little corner shop or the small little pub or the small little farm. Not interested in that. We're only interested in the big guys. Why? Why do we need to nationalise? Well, you need to nationalise because whoever controls the land, the banks and the big industries controls the entire economy. The little shops and the little businesses and the little farms have got no independent existence. They are dependent upon the big banks and the big boys and the big supermarkets and so on. They've got no independent significance. And therefore, as long as the working class has in its hands the land, the banks and the big industries, the big monopolies, that's sufficient. That's quite sufficient to do what? To plan the economy. Now, I said earlier on that capitalism is unplanned. It's anarchy, actually. It's anarchic. It's a complete mess. It's a jumble. It's a mess. I could give many examples of this, but let me just give one example. Transport. I mean, you've all seen the mess on the roads. They've introduced the congestion charge, which just hits poor people in the main, and things of this character. What is the solution to the pollution and the mess and the congestion? Well, there's a very simple solution. Not congestion charge. No. I'll be more radical than that. I say ban all public vehicles from city centres. Ban them altogether. And have
Private.
What did I say? Oh, I beg your pardon. Ban all private. I see you're all awake. This is a very good sign. Ban all private vehicles from city centres, and instead have free public transport. Free and efficient public transport, which you don't have in London, for goodness sake. It's a mess. It's a total mess. Furthermore, you should nationalise the rail. I mean, look, they've denationalised the railways in Britain. It's a complete disaster, including accidents, people killed. That's because it's all based on the profit motive. In our opinion, transport should not be run for profit. Transport is a social necessity. People have to get around in a big city like London, or Sao Paulo, or Rio de Janeiro, or any other city. You need transport. There should be an integrated system of rail, road and air transport and shipping. All nationalised, all with one national plan, and there should be free public transport in city centres at least, and then very cheap fares if necessary. If it's necessary to have fares for planes and the railway. I mean, most of these huge articulated lorries you see trundling through the streets of Greenwich and bunging everything up and causing pollution and accidents. That's quite unnecessary. This should go by railway, or even the canals, which are a perfectly good system of moving goods, which are used in the past, could be opened up and used for that purpose. What I'm saying to you is that this one problem could be solved. The same as housing and all the other problems could be solved on the basis of a socialist economy. Now, what is the purpose of the purpose of this? A socialist plan in Britain, for example. If you had a socialist plan in Britain, what it would mean? And now recently they were bragging and boasting because they got a rate of growth of about 2%, and they thought that was great. Look, in Russia after the revolution in the